And thanks to the panelists so far for providing a lot of enlightening facts and information, which is really helping us all come to some stronger conclusions about what the future fuel mix should be. Thank you for that. One of our big challenges globally as society and as an organization, a conservation organization such as WWF, in fact, our biggest single priority as an organization globally is tackling climate change. It's dealing with carbon emissions, and it's dealing with them in a way where we can provide security, reliability, and all of those other issues as well. But it has to be able to tackle climate change at the same time. And so one of our challenges, of course, when we look at the fuel mix consultation, as been noted by a few other panelists, is we're looking at something, or one piece of the jigsaw, without necessarily knowing what some of the other pieces are. So that we think there are basically four elements to any kind of coherent energy policy that are needed in order for it to actually all fit together. I spent quite a few years looking and participating in European energy policy, and the elements within it, I think we can learn a lot from for Hong Kong as well. Number one is actually time. What kind of a time horizon are you planning on? How long for? 2023 might sound like a long time away. It's just around the corner for infrastructure investments. And it's actually, it's almost too late in some cases. If you look at Europe right now, they're actually consulting on their 2030 policy already and trying to lock that in place. Because 15 years from now, that's about, they need that 2030 yardstick, and they already have a 2050 goal in place. So we need some longer term thinking in terms of what our climate policy should be for Hong Kong beyond 2020. Although we do know adopting government's policy, adopting the previous 2010 consultation is a step forward. At least it's bringing the issue of a climate and a carbon policy back up the agenda for Hong Kong. So that's really something that urgently needs to be addressed, and on a longer time horizon as well. So number one is time. Secondly, once you've got an idea that you're going to work on longer timescales, what should those climate numbers be for Hong Kong? Interestingly, in Europe, a decade ago, there was a lot of cynicism around whether certain carbon targets could be met, certain renewable energy targets could be met. A lot of those cynics have been silenced over the years as industry stepped up, as people have stepped up, as consumers have stepped up, and in particular governments have stepped up and year by year advanced towards those targets. So there's no reason why we couldn't be thinking in Hong Kong of a 2050 target of zero net carbon for Hong Kong. That could well be possible. And if you don't have that kind of a long-term target, how could you possibly know what your next step should be, i.e. what our fuel mix should be in the next 5 years or 10 years? So a robust climate target over a longer time horizon is absolutely essential for Hong Kong. And of course it should be an absolute emissions target, not an intensity target. An absolute emission target is consistent with a developed economy. The next pillar, of course, once you've got a climate target, is demand-side management. Some very good comments from Daphne and others on the demand-side management. The overall average is you can cut your demand by about 50% globally, based on numerous studies out there by Ecofis and others. There's no reason why we couldn't be reaching to that in Hong Kong. And of course, that has a big effect on your fuel mix as well. Next, we come to the fuel mix consultation itself. Option 1, option 2. I would posit that it's not necessarily about option 1 or option 2. It's really about, do we have a vision for an integrated energy system, or do we want to go it alone? That's really the crossroads that we're at here. And if you've got a good idea of where you want to go over the long term, if you believe that you can actually substantially reduce your greenhouse gas emissions over the long term for Hong Kong, then the only real outcome is that you need interconnectivity. You cannot run a renewable energy system globally in Hong Kong. We're too small, and there's too much intermittency as well. You start building scale over a larger geographic area, and you can actually get much further, much faster as well. And Hong Kong could actually be a leader in this regard. It could be encouraging of China's Southern Grid to produce a different kind of energy specifically for Hong Kong. I'll give you one example. Slightly different example, but the Dutch railway system last week came out and said 100% renewable energy, but it has to be new renewable energy. They said, we'll buy electricity, but we wanted the power utility to provide new additional RE, not existing RE. So that sends a forward-looking market signal to industry to actually produce a different kind of a commodity that needs to be consumed. So that could be possible here. Obviously, just taking 30% of power from China's southern grid now with an awful lot of coal in it is problematic. But maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe there's a different way of looking at it. Conversely, the gas option, that might sound like a 2023 option for option 2, but it really is a 2040, 2050 option, because when you build those new assets, they have a life of 30, 40, 50 years. So implicit in the fuel mix is some very long-term decisions, but it's not explicit, which comes back to my point of actually making long-term decisions. So if there's some way of actually bringing these different issues together into a coherent roadmap for Hong Kong, I think we have a really good opportunity here. In particular because there's very few places in the world where you can govern a city and regulate your power sector at the same time. That gives us a very unique opportunity in Hong Kong as well, and something that we could demonstrate to the rest of the world as well. So that will be my kind of final conclusion and thought. Think long term, think about climate targets, and then from that, think about what we can do in this next step, in this next discussion, in this next decision. Thank you.